It's time to pick a side. The Border War is on the air with BG and TanMan.
Gang, welcome into episode 106 of The Border War. We are live. It is March 25th, the day after I think my eyes have finally recovered.
It's a lot of basketball.
Massive amount of basketball that I took in this weekend.
That was the correct way to use the word amount. I'm proud of you.
Wow, yeah. I know all the word things.
It's a massive number of games that you watched. That's how you would say that.
The very big number.
Well, that's fine. I can live with that.
Follow us on Twitter to have more of this witty banter at The Border War. You can follow BG at BG_Border War.
And TanMan's new handle is?
At TanMan3264. There's just nothing there, man. There's nothing for me to change to. I tried.
So boring.
I tried. If you want your grammar corrected, go follow. Give BG a follow. If you what's the thing that gets you the pudding analogy?
Well, that's what I was just doing. The more versus fewer.
More and fewer.
Less and fewer.
Yeah.
Less and fewer. Yeah.
Like I said, if you want some good pudding analogies, go give him a follow. You can also like and share our page on Facebook as well. Search for The Border War Podcast, whatever it is. We're there. BG, rounds 1 and 2 are in the books.
Yeah.
It is Chalk City, baby.
Yeah.
A lot of 1, 2, 3s, and 4s
Some
all
close
over
games,
the board.
But a lot of upsets, I guess, early on, and then none of them kind of amounted to anything bracket-wise. Nobody really makes it past that, other than Oregon. I mean,
Yeah, but I heard talking today. Oregon, I mean, they want a Pac-12 tournament.
They're still a 12 seed.
Yeah, they're not your. You look at what's left. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, and the one outlier in that, the 1, 2, 3, and 12, Oregon, Pac-12 champ. I don't really consider them a Cinderella. After last year with Loyola Chicago, and we've seen George Mason and VCUs and some of these lower seeded teams make these runs. Was the first round as enjoyable to you as in past years? Because I'm looking and there is no Cinderella. The clock struck midnight early this year.
Yeah, it did. Obviously, Central Florida, Wofford, two teams who were just
on the
to
verge.
like just blowing brackets apart. But both of those games end up going to the favorite teams and things continue on. Yeah, I mean, no, they weren't quite as enjoyable because there wasn't that one team who really jumped out the way schools have in the past. But that Gardner-Webb Virginia game looked like it was going to be an interesting game until halftime. I really was.
Oh my goodness!
Here I am sitting with UVA in my national championship spot on my bracket, and I'm like. And I thought to myself, I'm like, if they lose this game, I'm not doing the show next week. I'm just not. I was going to make up any excuse I could, but I wasn't going to come in here and justify that again.
I think I tweeted out during halftime of that thing, I said, if I'm Tony Bennett, I'm going to halftime, and I'm just telling them, look, you are on your own. If you do this nonsense again, I said, I'm not getting on a ref. I'm not calling a timeout. I will leave you out there to flounder.
Like Apollo Creed.
Hey, I'm going to leave you out there to fall on your face if you do this mess. And they came out in the first 4 minutes of the second half, took care of business.
And I know I'm not saying anything that's not been said before, but like a school like Virginia in a situation like that, that's a tough game for them to be in, right? You're of course you're looking ahead.
Yeah.
You're one seed, and you're playing a school with nothing to lose.
They were tight the first half of the game.
Nothing to lose. Gardner-Webb comes out there, let's fire the ball up, boys. Why not?
UMBC was still on their mind, you could tell in that first half.
Didn't dominate North Dakota State early on. That game was right in there. You guys.
Well, you guys said we were down 6 at halftime.
Yeah, you guys were not dominant in the first half. It's just, and again, though, I think a couple of things are going on. I think the overall level of college basketball in this country has gone up exponentially in the past 15 years. A 16 seed is full of kids that grew up playing AAU ball. They're not, you don't see these kids on the court. Like you watch an older tournament game from back in the 80s and you'd see guys every now and then. You're like, how did they make a team? That only happens, with the exception of Mike Kotsar, that only happens once in a blue moon now. All of these teams can beat you.
My take on it is UMBC last year completely changed the game. You know, you would go through.
No question.
You would go through a tournament, and if you had one versus 16 game that was a game in the second half, and you would watch those 16.
It's in everybody's head now.
Right, and you would watch those 16 seeds, and you could see in the second half of games where they were in it, them kind of crumble. You know, crucial moments in the game, or a call, they would never get a call, they wouldn't get a bounce, they would crumble on themselves. And like I said, if you got one of those games every couple years, you like 3 of the 4 1 versus 16 games were competitive. You know, Gardner-Webb was up at halftime. Iona was up at halftime. North Dakota State was up late in the second half before Duke went on a run. I think Maryland, Baltimore County completely changed the game. And the days of you getting 4 blowout 1 versus 16 games, I think are over, man.
And then
I think they're over.
And then not that it's the same thing, but Murray State, a 12 seed, who just annihilates Marquette. That game,
oh my goodness,
wasn't close.
Ja Morant put on a show.
Yeah, and it was really all Ja Morant. It had nothing to do with. I mean, now I will say Murray State had one kid on that team that to me looked like he should have been playing nose tackle. Not.
I know the game.
I'm just saying there are those guys out there still.
And that was Murray State Marquette did not turn into the game that CBS and the NCAA tournament folks were hoping it would be when they put it in that standalone middle of the day time slot before the evening games kicked off. That turned into a butt kicking
and get boat raced by Florida State in the next game. So whatever Murray State did, they did not play in a close basketball game in that tournament.
They did not take it to the next round. Well, listen, let's focus in on what I think were 2 of the more intriguing games of an otherwise just kind of okay first weekend of the tournament. We'll start right here in Spartanburg, and we'll talk about them because
they deserve to be talked about.
They deserve to be talked about, and the local radio folks here in town pretty much refuse to talk about them.
Yep.
That's the Wofford Terriers. Wofford beat Seton Hall in the first round. That was a fantastic second half, and then the last 4 minutes of that ball game,
they went
bananas, man.
Went to another gear.
Second round, they drew a perennial blue blood, a national title contender, Kentucky, and they gave the Wildcats all they wanted and then some in that one. I think at halftime they were down by 2, if I'm remembering correctly.
They were.
They're down by 2. I look up the stats, and Fletcher McGee has made 1 basket. He's 0 for 4 from 3. And I said, if you would have told Wofford going into the weekend, look, you're down 2 at halftime, and McGee has not hit a 3. He's got 1 basket. They would have jumped on that and rolled with it.
And I responded to your tweet. He's going to have a better second half.
I
was wrong.
Hey, I never would have imagined.
0 for 15.
I never would have imagined that, not that Wofford would lose to Kentucky. I don't think that's a big shock.
No.
I don't think them playing Kentucky tight is a big shock.
I don't think so either.
But for him to go 0 for 12, I think, from 3, and to lose by 6, man, after the year they had, that's a tough pill to swallow.
At the same time, it is a tough pill to swallow. But if I'm a Wofford fan, and I tweeted about this morning, it's time, if you're Wofford, to take your discourse to a different level. If I'm Mike Young, I am not going into kids' homes anymore. And I have no idea if he's been doing this anyway, but the media certainly has. Wofford is not a chippy underdog anymore. They went toe-to-toe with Kentucky to make a Sweet 16 game, and their best player had the worst game of his career, and you're still right in the game. So to me, if I'm Mike Young, then what I'm telling people is this is a team that can make a Sweet 16. We can bring that kind of talent to Spartanburg, South Carolina, and play at this school. And again, this is the best team Wofford's had in a long time. Mm-hmm. But this is one of a number of very good basketball teams that Wofford has had.
You look at Seton Hall, who they beat in the first round, like we said. They went on, kicked it to another gear the last 4 minutes. That's a Seton Hall team that beat Kentucky earlier in the year.
Right.
That's a Seton Hall team that a week ago is playing in Madison Square Garden for a Big East championship and losing to Villanova by a bucket. Seton Hall is a very, very good basketball team, and Wofford just annihilated them at the end of that ball game. My question is, now that they've had some success, and I know they bring back some guys, but Fletcher McGee is not coming back. He's done. I think Cameron Jackson might be
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure Pegram is, but they do bring back some of these kids off this team. How they carry over and how they take this success and let this carry over into next season. But two, is Mike Young going to be a candidate for some of these job openings that are sure to come along? Because you see it every year where somebody gets hot in the tournament. You guys fell victim to it with the Darren Horn hiring.
No question, man. Some
guys get hot, and all of a sudden somebody throws a boatload of money in front of them, and they can't say no.
Yeah, and it's not impossible. It certainly is not impossible. I think staying at Wofford for a long time, me being a Wofford grad, I mean, the place is different from a lot of places in that most of the time as a coach, you have to choose between, a nice liberal arts academic sort of setting and athletic success. And Wofford's managed to do both really for years.
In multiple sports. They are the bully on the block in that football conference, and it's a tough football conference. Even when Georgia State was still in that conference, Wofford held their own with a much larger football factory in Georgia State. Basketball, they've ruled the Southern Conference for a decade now. Then one could make the argument they've ruled the state of South Carolina for a decade now. I think it would have to be the money. Because as far as the attractiveness of the job, I mean, again, Wofford is a Sweet 16 program on the cusp. I mean, they're right there. Now, I'll say this, too, and I'm not really answering your question, but Wofford's not going to be a school that does this every year. And I think everyone knows that. They need, fourth and fifth year seniors. But a lot of teams need fourth. Obviously, South Carolina does. They're going to bring some of these guys back. One of the guys that did have a good game, and I kind of wondered if I know Fletcher McGee is your guy. I know you got to let a shooter
dance with who brung you, right?
You're right. At some point, you got to go. Okay,
it wasn't falling.
It's not my day. It's not going to happen.
I had a couple of people.
I would have liked to have seen Storm Murphy get a look at the end of that ball game because I think he hit a shot with about 6 minutes to go, and I don't know. He never got another one. Murphy was like 4 for 5, 5 for 6 for 3.
I had a couple of people text me that they agreed with what you posted. Local high school basketball coach didn't agree with you, but I mean that's fine. And I saw his point too.
I get his point
because you keep thinking, okay, he's going to hit one, and when he hits one, then he's on. But there were certain shots he shouldn't have taken.
He shoots these things, and he's fantastic. It's hard to criticize the guy who's made more threes than anybody in college basketball history.
Right.
But it's like every time he shoots the ball, he's falling in all these different angles, and I watch him, and sometimes I'm like, how does he make anything?
Right.
His feet are never. But anyway, like I said, I would have liked to have seen maybe somebody else get a look at the end of the game. A tough way to end it for them. I think the other really intriguing game of the weekend happened down in Columbia.
You think?
Didn't involve the Gamecocks. I know that's shocking. Duke and Central Florida. I think Duke was a massive favorite in this game. I don't know exactly what the number was. They were a huge favorite over Central Florida. And the Blue Devils, this thing almost came crashing down. And what a day it would have been.
Look.
Oh, my goodness. One roll, man.
I'm not a Duke fan. I don't hate them the way you do. I'm not going to throw this on the officials. I thought there were some bad calls that went both ways. The
officiating at the very, very end of that game was terrible.
No, it was.
It was.
But, and UCF was given a basket they shouldn't have got as well.
What basket?
The basket that should have been a shot clock violation that clearly did not touch the rim.
See, I disagree with you. I think it did.
The trajectory of the ball did. Either way, we're not going to get into that. That's a pointless discussion at this point. Either way, UCF had chances to win that game. Now, to be fair, yes, R.J. Barrett basically put both hands on a guy to get a rebound, shoved him basically to the floor.
Zion drove through a man like a truck driving through a cornfield to get into, and then they call Taco Fall for. Now, granted, I think Taco Fall, you're up 3. Fall knows he's got 4 fouls. Nobody was going in there late in that ball game. Nobody from Duke was going inside.
Right.
And I thought Fall should have just thrown his hands up or put them behind his back and backed up underneath the basket and not even been anywhere near it.
Well, I think that's where that pregame tweet comes in, though, right? I'm not going to allow him. His pride was on the line, and he stepped it up. And that's what cost him his opportunity to finish the game.
That possession was going nowhere fast. You had Zion Williamson out there dribbling on the perimeter for like 10 seconds. That thing's going nowhere. I thought the guy from Central Florida made a good play to get himself in position to draw the charge, because Zion's got one. He wants to go to his right and then spin back to the left. I thought he got it exactly right.
Right.
Didn't get the call. You're still up 3. Fall gets out of the way. Give them a basket. You're up 2. Make them foul you. Go make some free throws, and then let the chips fall where they may the last 10 seconds or so. But then, like you said, the R.J. Barrett, he pushes a guy 2 or 3 feet up underneath the basket to get a rebound.
Both hands, man.
Yeah.
He put both hands on him.
And with that said, they've still got a ball, 2 cracks at it, much the way North Carolina did a week ago up in Charlotte. 2 cracks at it, a tip in to send the Blue Devils home. And once again, they escape.
Look,
my goodness. Words for that, man.
They may win a national title. And even if they do, I'm going to stand by these words. They are a flawed basketball team. They have one style of offense, and that is to get the ball mostly designed, but get it inside. They can't shoot from outside. They have very little ball movement on offense. When you take the inside away, they honestly, like you said, they sort of just stand there with the ball. And if you can get into a free throw battle with them, and this is why I picked Texas Tech to take them out, because I think what Texas Tech can do. Now, Texas Tech's offense hasn't played great in this tournament. They've really been more of a defensive team. But if Texas Tech can start hitting 3-pointers, that's how you're going to beat Duke, is outscore them. Make them get into an arms race with you that they cannot hope to win.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I thought Central Florida did a good job defending them. I don't know. I heard Seth Greenberg.
Not everybody's going to have a 7'6" guy in the paint, though.
Right. But I heard Seth Greenberg and them debating on ESPN what was the blueprint out there. And what they did was they defended Zion. I thought it was interesting. They defended Zion with a smaller guy and let Taco Fall, let their big man kind of guard Trey Jones. Keep an eye on Trey Jones around, but mainly kind of anchor this area. And when Zion comes in, you come and help off Trey Jones and make him, because that's one thing Zion will do. He will share the ball.
Yeah.
Make him kick it back out, and if Trey Jones makes threes, then you tip your cap and you gave it your best shot. But I'm going to make some of these guys stand out there and get threes.
If they beat you by shooting 3-pointers, then
there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do because then they become a perfect basketball team. If they can shoot 3-pointers, they're unbeatable. But they have not done it yet.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Now, they shot 40%, I think, in this game.
And that's the point I was getting to. It seems like every time a team wins a national championship, you can look back through the tournament, and there will be one game where they played like trash. And, for Villanova last year, I thought it was a Texas Tech game. You saw what Villanova did to Kansas in the Final Four. You go back around to Texas Tech. They're struggling to hit shots. They're struggling to get a score into the 60s. That was their game that they got out of. I don't necessarily think that this was that game for Duke because we've seen them all year long. It's no big secret. Their Achilles heel is making shots from the outside. They made 7. They averaged about 7 threes a game on the year.
Right.
Okay? They made 10 Sunday.
Right.
They didn't have a bad shooting day. They made 10 3-pointers. I think the bad shooting day for Duke is still out there. I think the night where that rim shrinks to the size of a rim at a carnival, that night is still out there for the Blue Devils. So I would be a little worried. And especially coming up this next round, you get Virginia Tech. So many times over the course of the season, we've seen Duke take the floor and immediately be up 9 points, 10 points, just because the other team sees the name on the jersey and kind of tightens up. Virginia Tech is not that team.
Right.
They're not going to be intimidated whatsoever by those 4 letters on the front of those jerseys. And so I think this could be an interesting ball game for the Blue Devils.
Yeah, and I mean, and Virginia Tech, like a lot of teams in the tournament right now, sort of benefiting, I guess that's the right word, from no buzz at all.
No.
And that's why I still like my Virginia pick for a national title. If you look at that metric they put out after the first 2 rounds, every year it's the 4-part square. Mm-hmm. It's got positive offense, negative defense, that kind of thing. Virginia and North Carolina, according to that, are the 2 best teams in the tournament right now. they're not going to play for a national title.
Hey, I wouldn't disagree with you. Maybe the team that is getting the least amount of buzz and perhaps looked the best over the weekend, North Carolina Tar Heels opponent Friday night, the Auburn Tigers. Auburn steamrolls after they get through that first-round game with New Mexico State. They absolutely steamrolled Kansas in the second round.
I had this feeling about them coming off that tournament that they looked competitive to me. I mean, the last bad game Auburn had, they beat South Carolina in an ugly match.
Yeah.
Since then, they've looked out of this world.
And look, like we said, they draw North Carolina this weekend. This is not a game that I was that I was real nervous about before the start of the season. I told you,
look, who you had in your bracket?
I had Kansas.
Okay,
I took Kansas. Yeah. But before the tournament started, I said, look, I think that kind of seen the movie before. I think they shot their shot last weekend and won the SEC tournament. But boy,
and an emotional. You figured they might have been flat,
right,
drained.
Maybe they were a little bit that first round, but by the time they rolled, by the time they suited up with Kansas,
well, like you said, they had their moment. They could have easily lost in New Mexico State, but they make it out of that. Then they come into that Kansas game, shots fall early. They almost score 90 points.
Hey, look at it.
Dynamic looking up. They sort of look like, I saw a tweet in that Kansas game, they sort of looked like Golden State light. I mean,
that's what they looked like the first half.
They really did.
The one thing I think that you can always get if you play North Carolina, kind of our Achilles heel on defense, you can get some wide open threes. And for Auburn, they've got two guys, and Bryce Brown, he made 131 threes this year. Another guy, Jared Harper, he's made 94. So basically two guys that's made over 100 threes on the year. These guys could cause a lot of problems for North Carolina. The one advantage I think the Tar Heels have on the boards, they've dominated the first two rounds. They've got 17.5 offensive rebounds per game through the first two rounds. And of the teams that are left in the tournament, the next closest is Gonzaga in that mark at 14 a game. So Carolina pounding the boards the first two rounds.
All right, so my North Carolina stat to watch is, and I've said this really every time we've talked about them, to me, and it's not a shocker, the thing to watch for me is Kobe White, and it's not his points, it's his dishes. When he gets the ball to Nasir Little, that is your best offensive play. That to me, or whoever is in the paint, when he has 5, 6, 7 assists a game, I don't see anybody beating you guys. But when he's not able to do that, your offense becomes a lot more predictable, and he is forced to try shots that are 30, 40% shots, and he can make them
sometimes.
But he looks like he's going to throw both shoulders out of joint and end up three rows up in the seats. So when Kobe's vision is good and he sees open guys and he gets them the ball, you guys are arguably the best team in the tournament right now.
Look, I like our chances this weekend. I think ultimately, and we'll get to this in a minute, but I think ultimately Carolina as a 1 seed under Roy Williams, I don't think that as a 1 seed, I don't think that they have ever been eliminated before the Elite Eight, if I'm remembering correctly. But I think Friday night we're going to have our hands full with those guys. And if Auburn brings you anything close to what they brought Kansas in the first half of that ball game, I'll let the Jayhawks back in a little bit, but if they give you anything of what they gave Kansas that first half, hoy vey, because we saw Iona in the first half hit 10 3-pointers. Auburn certainly is capable of that, and I guarantee you halftime of that Iona game, probably some words were said, maybe some paint peeled off the wall. They looked a lot better on Sunday. They had one small stretch before the end of the first half where they kind of let Washington back in it and cut the lead down to 8. And in the second half, they just spent all second half pushing it away, and before you know it, the ball game's over and you win by whatever it was, 25. So, I think UNC Auburn could set up to be a classic. Auburn, before the season started, they were a top team, one that everyone was looking out for. Had some injuries, played Duke tough in Maui, lost some games in the SEC, but now these guys are fully healthy, and they are they are ready to go, man. They look good.
You got two teams here at the bottom of that bracket, Texas Tech and Michigan, who have dominated all 4 games they've been in. I've got Texas Tech in my Final Four. I'm going to have to take them to win it. Michigan's looked really good, though.
Yeah.
I had them losing early. They did not.
I want to say that West region, 3 of those 4 teams are the same 3 of the 4 teams we got out of one of those brackets last year. Because Gonzaga and Florida State, and I want to say Michigan beat Florida State in the Elite Eight last year. So 3 of the 4 teams in that region are still the same. So we'll do the West. I picked Texas Tech to beat Michigan. If Gonzaga can get by Florida State, and I think after losing to them last year in this same spot they will, other than North Carolina, I think you can make the case for Gonzaga looking like the best team so far in this tournament. And those guys have looked strong. They have looked.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out where I had Gonzaga going out. I think I have them losing to Florida State. Yeah, I think that's what I had because that was one of the questions we talked about last week was who was the first 1 seed out, and that was my answer because I had them losing in the round of 16 to Florida State, which I don't think is impossible.
It's not impossible. Leonard Hamilton, year after year after year, he just does a fantastic job down there with those guys. Look, he's got those guys. He's got Florida State on the cusp of another big tournament run. If they can get by Gonzaga, they absolutely drug Murray State in the second round. Ja Morant was no match for the Seminoles' size. Murray State no match for their size. I think Gonzaga and Florida State's going to be another good one. I think Florida State beat Gonzaga by 15 last year. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not going to be a 15-point game for the Noles this time if they win. But give me the Zags, man. I thought going in, them and Texas Tech were headed for a showdown in the Elite Eight. I still think that, and I still think the Zags come out of that West region.
I really hope not.
Well, at this point, look, just cut the brackets up, man. Who cares?
No, I care.
No,
I care deeply.
Who cares?
I just realized I sort of left the Midwest bracket behind there. That Houston-Kentucky game, another one that really shapes up to be a pretty entertaining basketball game. Houston's another one of those teams. My take on them going into the tournament was this is a 3 seed that won right at 30 games, and no one cares about them. They're loaded with upperclassmen. I think they've got a real crack at taking Kentucky out of this tournament.
I would love to see it. The question for them is how they deal with Kentucky's size because Kentucky's got some big bodies to throw at you. But I would love to see Houston beat Kentucky.
Sure, I think most of the country will.
I would love to see that. I don't think they will, though. I think I think we're destined for a North Carolina-Kentucky showdown in the Elite Eight. That's how they set the bracket up.
Sure.
And, the basketball gods who knocked the ball out for UCF because it just wasn't the right thing to do and for them to win. But it wasn't the right thing for Grayson Allen to win last year either. I think the basketball gods have set us up for Carolina and Kentucky, and I'm going to stay with it. There's no reason to vary from it now. I think this time next week we're going to be talking about North Carolina in the Final Four for the 3rd time in 4 seasons. Up in the South region, I guess Cinderella, maybe, if you want to call them that.
They're a 12 seed, man.
They're 12, okay. Oregon and Virginia, Purdue and Tennessee.
The Pac-12 gets disrespected in basketball all the time, though.
They should be disrespected, man. They should be.
Well, I didn't say they shouldn't be. There's still disrespect, though.
Well, they should be disrespected. They have earned that disrespect.
But there is no word for appropriate disrespect. It's still called disrespect.
Their regular season champion just got run out of the gym by North Carolina.
Look, man, I'm trying to follow your narrative, and the problem is you switch all the time.
How do I switch anything?
Well, 20 minutes ago, you're like, that's not a Cinderella team. They're Pac-12 champions.
Yeah, but the Pac-12 is not a Cinderella team. Yeah, give me Liberty. Liberty wins yesterday. We'll talk about Liberty being
Give me Liberty or give me a Pac-12 champion.
Huh?
Give me Liberty or give me death, man. It's a famous quote.
From what?
From American history. Oh, my God. Who are you? Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death. One of the founders of the United States. Country you purport to love so deeply. Let's just move on.
George Washington founded the United States.
Okay. All right.
Huh?
Yes, you're right. George Washington founded the United States.
And Christopher Columbus. But
Yeah,
anyway,
okay.
Has nothing to do with Virginia and Oregon.
Help me.
Or Purdue and Tennessee. The Cavaliers, I don't know, man. I don't know. I picked them. I picked Virginia to go through, and this would be the year of the Final Four. But the more I sit here and think about it, I didn't buy into Tennessee. That's probably why my bracket got sunk very early.
I bought into them to make it this far.
But they blew a big lead yesterday against Iowa. I dozed off and woke up.
I had them losing to Purdue in this round. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
I remember picking Iowa to make it somewhat far. I wish I could see my bracket, but I left it at home. I write things on paper.
Paper?
Yeah. I mean, I could look our bracket up if I wanted to.
I don't want to look my bracket up. It's terrible. Give me the Volunteers, man. Give me the Vols.
No, yeah, I think so.
Give me the Vols to come out of this region.
I think so at this point. I mean, they've.
I would like to say I would like to see Virginia. I would love for North Carolina to get another crack at Virginia.
I see what you're saying. No, I think they come out of the. I think they beat Purdue. No. Virginia makes it to the Final Four, man. I refuse to believe anything else.
Yeah, I'm going to switch up on that one.
Again, in that metric, and I know it's not everything, but basketball is a kind of a metric sport. Virginia has the best balance of everybody left in the tournament between offense and defense, according to every stuff. I mean, I'm taking Virginia.
That's tough to argue.
And I think the whole country agrees with you. I think the whole country thinks that Tennessee's going to beat Virginia. I think, man, if I were Virginia, the size of the chip on my shoulder would be growing hourly.
Yeah.
Hourly. Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. And finally, up in the East region, this one is loaded, man. This one is loaded. Like we said, you've got Duke and Virginia Tech. The Hokies are not going to be scared of the Blue Devils. And on the bottom of that, you've got LSU and Michigan
State. That's a great
State.
game, man.
LSU and Michigan State.
From pure basketball, this might be the best one.
What I don't like is that they've stuck the East region and the Midwest, which is Carolina's region. They both have Friday games. So like while North Carolina is playing, we've got the early game.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Michigan State's playing, and then you've got Duke and Kentucky playing at the same time on Friday night.
That's absurd.
They completely crapped the bed on the scheduling on this one. BG, are we sitting here next week talking about what an epic failure this Duke season, because they have basically been championship or bust. They can sell you on they can cry about having a freshman, blah 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 all they want to. It is championship or bust for the Duke Blue Devils. Where are we this time next week?
I mean, I think they make the Final Four.
Yeah,
I think that's where they lose. That's my take. So no, I don't think we're talking about it next week. But I don't think your nightmare scenario is going to come true either. I mean, and I know believing something feels like it should be is not a basketball reason. I mean, and I get it. If I were you, I'd be scared to death of it too. I wouldn't want to play Clemson for a national title. No. And I know Clemson fans are thinking, well, of course you wouldn't want to play. Yeah, we're talking about in equestrian, people. I didn't say in what sport. But no, in all seriousness, I think Duke and North Carolina both are sitting right there on the cusp of that game. But Virginia Tech can beat them. They absolutely can. This is a team.
Give me Michigan State to come out of this bracket.
You know what?
Give me Michigan State to come out.
I definitely think Michigan State beats LSU.
Yeah, because I say this,
especially now that I'm sure you saw the press conference. Tom Izzo has a completely different approach now. He says that when we don't rebound well in the first half, we're just hugging each other.
We're going to talk about it and love one another.
Oh, it's great stuff, man. Have you been confused by that, by the way? I have been jaw hanging open, amazed at how controversial that was.
Now, I roll my eyes at it, man.
I have coached Little League players harder than that. I have. I mean, I just... And people want to keep coming back to he put his hand on. I mean...
If he had jacked the kid up by his shirt in the middle of the floor, okay, you got a problem.
He grabbed his wrist and quickly took his hand off.
Look.
It's like Scott Van Pelt said. Are there other ways he could have done it? Sure. But this is a way.
And it was
not out of line.
This is how he coaches. This is how he...
soft freaking country.
I say this. You don't like the Tom Izzo display the other week. Go buy you a ticket and sit a few rows behind the Duke bench, and you tell me Mike Krzyzewski isn't doing all these things and using language that you would blush if your mother was around you. I promise you he does. Look, Tom Izzo is a fantastic coach.
I'm just glad that we have a guy in South Carolina that doesn't do that stuff. I'll just say that.
Well, listen, Roy, Roy's very famous. He doesn't curse.
Daggum Roy.
He doesn't curse. He doesn't grab players. But by golly, the message gets through, which means there's more than one way to skin a cat, right?
There's one, and that is his style. But I assure you, if when he was 25 years old, he had figured out the only way I'm getting these guys' attention is to be Tom Izzo, then that's what he would have done.
If you got to let a few
if
4-letter words fly, listen, these are 18, 19, 20-year-old individuals. I promise you, nothing Tom Izzo has said or will say is anything that they have not heard before.
And another thing about that scene, you see the other two Michigan State players, talking to him, and the world wants to interpret it. Go back and watch it real slow. What they're saying is, I got it, Coach.
Yeah, we'll take care of it.
They knew. They all knew.
Which is exactly why I am taking the Spartans to be in the Final Four next weekend. I think Duke gets by Virginia Tech in a tight ball game. I think Michigan State takes out Duke because of that senior leadership. When the game gets tight, Michigan State's not going to panic.
No.
They're not going to panic. They're not going to beat themselves. This is a team that I've watched all year long, and I've been like, they're okay. But they keep, as long as they're not playing Indiana, apparently, they keep finding a way. They keep finding a way over and over and over again. I think they find a way this weekend. And also because if you take Duke to the Final Four, I think Gonzaga beats them. I think North Carolina is going to be in the national championship game, which is a rematch from a couple years ago. Go back and look. You don't get rematches of championship games. They just don't happen.
Right.
So give me Michigan State and Gonzaga matching up in the Final Four, and Tennessee
but this
and North
year,
Carolina.
They're not going to have a juggernaut like South Carolina to exhaust that Gonzaga team before you guys get
is that what it was?
Yeah, you mopped up.
Well, we got the Gamecocks
mopped up
leftovers.
The very little bit of energy that the Zags had left.
Oh, if only Sindarius Thornwell had not had alcohol poisoning, they would have.
You see him get all chippy with me on Twitter the other night?
Yeah, if only. Did
you see that?
Yeah, I saw it. If only Sin hadn't had alcohol poisoning, y'all would have won that. You sound like
I'm talking about he got chippy with me.
Oh no, I didn't see that. It sounded like chippy with somebody.
No. Well, this was a different thing. He's a thin-skinned dude to be really rich and playing in the NBA. But no, he tweeted something, and I assume he was responding to Zion's quote, where Zion goes off and names all these players that are great from South Carolina, because apparently that's a thing.
Apparently, John Moran is from South Carolina. I had no idea.
Grew up right outside Columbia. Frank Martin did offer him, to be fair, but he had been offered by Murray State.
It was already a done deal
when he was 7 years old.
I don't think that's quite accurate.
18, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, so Sindarius responds this guy says, "What about?" He says, "If you're not talking about guys from SC." And a guy clearly thought he meant from South Carolina, the team. Mm-hmm. And he says, "What about, Dwayne Notice?" And the guy's like, he's not from South Carolina. And all I wrote was, he thought you were talking about the state, not the school. Mm-hmm. And Sindarius comes back to me with, "Well, I wasn't even talking to you." And of course, 900 people have to click like. And I wrote, I guess if he wrote, "I just had a chicken sandwich," y'all will all click like too. I'm like, I'm just trying to help out, man. Don't worry, I won't make that mistake again. And then I wrote, "Backs away slowly." I mean, that's just, but another time I tweeted something about Sindarius and his uncle jumped all over me. Well, remember that? Maybe I just need to stay off the topic of Sindarius Thornwell.
Sindarius Thornwell and Savell Newton, neither one of us have had very good experiences with the Gamecock athletes. So we talked about, I think some of you guys, if Sin hadn't been sick, we'd have won a national championship.
I don't know why that bothers you so much. Man, you want it. Let it go. It's over.
You sound like Uncle Rico. If Coach would just put me in the fourth quarter, we'd have won state.
Uncle Rico was right.
He could throw the football over those mountains.
The Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl in 30 years because you haven't played Uncle Rico. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it.
The Redskins haven't won a Super Bowl in like 34 years.
That's right.
They do stink.
Neither one of us are winning it this year either.
We'll win it before you. Anyway, that's the last word on that topic.
Good for you.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. We're done. You can email the show at carolinaborderwar@gmail.com. Go and check out some of our buddies at stadiumscene.tv. When you get through with this one, Go check out some of their other podcasts that they have available there. Again, go follow us on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook. Stick around. We'll be back in a few minutes for episode number 107. We'll be talking about some baseball. BG's going to give us a college baseball update. Some of the thoughts on the Atlanta Braves season that will start in a few days. And also, kids, if you've got a bat and a ball and a glove,
learn to hit it
up.
Virginia over Texas Tech in the national title.
Ain't going to happen, bro.
No, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And
What's
if it
my
doesn't
shirt say?
happen, I will
What's
change.
my shirt say? National champions.
That's in the past.